Yo, what's good, Spirit Squad? Today, we're going to take a look at one of Pioneer's most popular decks, and that's going to be Mono Blue Spirits. Today, we're going to learn all about the deck and how we managed to turn a bunch of 1/1s and 2/1s into one of Pioneer's most respected threats. So the first thing we should probably go over is, what is Mono Blue Spirits and why is it taking over Pioneer? And the answer to that is pretty simple. Mono Blue Spirits is a tempo deck that's trying to combine an aggressive creature-based plan, some card advantage, and counter magic all into the same one deck. As a lot of people will know and will have heard me say on this channel, Mono Blue is not the only version of Spirits that's out there. Mono Blue Spirits is the best performing right now, but there is a Bant version of Spirits that plays Collect the Company. There is also an Azorius version of Spirits that plays Watcher of the Spheres and a much more aggressive plan. All of them are good, but currently Mono Blue Spirits is the best. And when I say Mono Blue Spirits is performing well, I mean it is performing absurdly well. In the last 3 weeks alone, Mono Blue Spirits had a first place finish in the hands of Pascal Maynard in an event in Quebec. It won a Pioneer Challenge in the hands of Hirosukai, who also has a ton of Pioneer 5-0 trophy finishes, and it even won the last Pioneer Showcase Challenge, a super huge deal event that qualifies players for pro level events. This deck is real. In front of us, we have some of the core cards for Mono Blue Spirits, and for anybody who's unaware of what the text on any of the cards are, feel free to pause this video and go to scryfall.com so that you can look up the cards for yourselves. As for the core cards in Mono Blue Spirits, the key ones are going to be Curious Obsession, an enchantment that lets you draw extra cards every turn for just 1 mana. Ascendant Spirit, an aggressive threat that starts at 1 mana, and lets you sink mana into it later in the game so that it's a respectable threat both early and late. And Geistlight Snare. This is, for our deck, going to be Mana Leak Plus, because you can cast it a lot of the time for as little as 1 mana. Here in front of us, we've got a list of all of the creatures that would be played in Mono Blue Spirits, and alone, each one of these is not exactly the most impressive threat. But when you combine them together, this deck can do everything. The creatures protect themselves from spells and from removal with things like Mausoleum Wanderer and Rattle Chains. They control combat with Shacklegeist and Brazen Bower. You get to play things at instant speed with Spectral Sailor, Rattle Chains, and Spectral Adversary. Creatures get bigger with Supreme Phantom and Ascendant Spirit making itself bigger. And the fact that you can do all of this at instant speed makes the deck go from unimpressive to absolutely amazing. The counter spells are where Mono Blue Spirits really shines. You have a lot of great options for not that much mana. Spell Pierce, of course, always costs 1 and is one of the best counter spells that's ever been printed. Geistlight Snare is an improved mana leak for us. If you have a spirit, it only costs 2 instead of 3. If you have an enchantment as well, it'll cost just 1. And we already want to have an enchantment and a spirit on the table at the same time. So this just becomes an improved mana leak for us. Lofted Denial, or some people call it Mana Beak, will make opponents pay 4 mana instead of 3, so this is also an improved mana leak. This gives Mono Blue Spirits an even better counterspell suite than the actual control decks. Nothing to not like here. The other thing that makes Mono Blue Spirits especially impressive is the mana base. It is ridiculously simple, but very effective. You just play a giant pile of snow-covered islands, anywhere from 2 to 4 copies of Faceless Haven, an amazing creature land that has vigilance, and sometimes 1 copy of Otawara Soaring City, and that's not even necessary. There's no pain because you're not playing any shock lands or anything. There's no worrying about multiple colors because you're playing a monocolor deck, and you get to play creature lands. As one of the only decks in all of Pioneer that plays creature lands, you're especially able to finish games through effects like Supreme Verdict. You're able to pressure planeswalkers like Narset Parter of Veils with your Faceless Havens, and you're not taking any damage for any of it. So you have a little bit of extra gain against the mono red decks and other decks that are looking to burn you out with damage that you would otherwise not have in a deck like Blue-White Spirits or Bant Spirits. Overall, amazing mana. Of course, every deck has its fair share of matchup analysis, and Mono Blue Spirits is no different in that regard. We've got some very good matchups towards the top of the Pioneer metagame. All of the control decks, combo decks, and ramp decks are something that we have a lot of game against, thanks to our suite of counterspells and the fact that our creatures can protect each other from removal. But that's not to say that any deck is without its bad matchups, and Mono Blue Spirits has those as well. We have an especially hard time against Winota, which is near the top of the Pioneer meta at pretty much all times. The card Mayhem Devil, because all of our creatures typically have 1 toughness, and Mayhem Devil is pretty hard for us to overcome. And aggressive red decks. They can get under us and give us a pretty difficult time. Now that we've gone over each of the components of a Mono Blue Spirits deck, we can finally tie the room together and come up with one cohesive deck list. Here, we'll see that in the creature section, there's a lot of them, 27 creatures, and that's because this deck always wants to be attacking. That's how you win games of Magic with this deck. We've got 4 copies each of the 1-drops we want to play, 4 Ascendant Spirits, 4 Spectral Sailors, and 4 Mausoleum Wanderers. We also have 4 each of the very powerful 2-drops we get to play, 4 Rattle Chains, 4 Supreme Phantoms, and 4 Shacklegeists. And we've got 3 copies of our favorite instant speed interaction spell in Brazen Borrower. You get interaction and a threat at the same time, and really, that's the most mono blue thing ever. For the non-creature cards in our deck, we have our ridiculously simple mana base, 19 snow-covered lands and 3 copies of Faceless Haven. For our non-creature spells, this is also very simple. We've got 4 copies of Curious Obsession, 4 copies of Geistlight Snare, and 3 copies of Lofty Denial. Our sideboard is pretty simple, but also very effective. We've got a new toy from Streets of New Capenna in 4 copies of Witness Protection. This can turn any creature into a 1/1 with no text. That'll turn off some very relevant threats, like Voice of Resurgence, Cavalier of Thorns, and Thing in the Ice, none of which we really like to see. We've also got 4 copies of Mystical Dispute. There's going to be a lot of blue cards in the Pioneer format, including other Spirits matchups, control decks, and a lot of the combo decks play blue, like Lotus Field combo and Jeskai Ascendancy combo. We don't want to deal with any of that nonsense, so Mystical Dispute is going to be one of the best counterspells in all of Pioneer, and we're going to play 4 of them. We've got 3 copies of Aether Gust, and this helps solve a lot of problems. A lot of the key cards from the Winota deck are either red or green. The mono green deck, as described, plays a lot of green cards. And we don't really want to deal with either of those things, so we've got 3 copies of Aether Gust here. We also have 3 copies of Dive Down to help us survive against a lot of the removal heavy decks, and this is going to include things like mono red, black red mid-range, and a whole plethora of control decks. We also have a 1-of copy of Otawara Soaring City. This is going to be an uncounterable removal spell that has a lot of jobs in this deck. It can solve problems like Shark Typhoon tokens from the control decks, giant threats like the Cavalier of Thorns from the mono green decks, or in a pinch, it can even save your own creatures from things like Supreme Verdict, because Otawara does not say anything about just affecting your opponent's cards. These are going to be all of the cards that would typically be played in a Mono Blue Spirits list, and you can check out this specific deck list in the video description via the Stream Decker link. Check it out for yourself. And now we know pretty much everything we need to about how to play Mono Blue Spirits. We know the good, the bad, and the deck list. We know that we can build everything here for under $200 American, which is really impressive for a deck that's putting up such wildly good results. So if you like what you're watching, make sure to let me know in the comments. Do you like Mono Blue Spirits? Do you like another version of Spirits? Or do you like another deck entirely? I'm curious as to what everybody's thoughts in the format are. I myself do plan on playing Mono Blue Spirits, and of course other versions of Spirits here and there too. But as always, if you like what you're watching, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and I'll see y'all on the next one.